Hello, everyone. How are you doing? And welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show, where we have the discussions that inform, entertain, and empower educators to be the change. I am your host, Dr. Will, and I am here with Kelly Hoey today. How are you doing, Kelly?
I'm doing really well. Happy to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you for being a guest on the show. I've been following you on Twitter and LinkedIn and reading your blog posts and really, on YouTube and watching you do these talks and everything. And I was like, okay, I know it's a stretch. I said, but I got to reach out and see if she'll be a guest on the show. And, I bought your book. See, I'm an ebook person, but here it is, people. Build
Awesome.
your dream network. And there's some great information in there. So I wanted to have you on a guest on the show to talk about building your network.
Well, I am absolutely thrilled to be here. Thank you for following me. Thank you for putting up with my nonsense on Twitter. And more importantly, thank you for buying my book.
You're welcome. Thank you. People, go out and get it. Once this goes out on my blog, there'll be a link to take you to Amazon where you can actually purchase the book. Will you please introduce yourself, Kelly?
So I'm Kelly Hoey. I'm the author of Build Your Dream Network. That's what I'm doing now, being an author. In my past life, I was a corporate attorney. I've been in management in law firms and done a whole lot of other bits and bobs in between until landing where I am now.
Awesome. So it really is a really good book, and I love the anecdotes in there from interviews you've done with people, as well as the advice. It's just really awesome. So I was definitely, when I got my hands on it, I was like, oh, this is good here. So what was the pain point for writing Build Your Dream Network?
Well, yeah, speak like an entrepreneur in a startup. The pain point was, how do I scale the advice I'm frequently asked for? And I think maybe one of the lessons there for people is, you got to listen to your network. Your network often sees in you more than you see in yourself. And I was frequently getting asked for advice on whether it was, I don't know, growing a business, changing careers, something. And for me, those answers are always placed within networks. How do we connect with other people to achieve our career success, ambition, our goal? And it got to the point where it's like, you can only do so many coffee dates, even when you're not a coffee drinker. There's only so many of those coffee dates you can do. And so much of what I was being asked for was very similar in terms of the process I looked at in terms of unpacking a solution. And so that's when I started blogging and doing my newsletter. And that just didn't seem to be enough for people, still wanting to, get more advice. And I thought, well, I better just put this in a book. So that's, pure and simple what it was, unpack the networking process of Kelly, how I go about it and put it in, 255 pages.
Awesome. So in education, we've all heard of begin with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. In your book and in blog posts, you've written about the need for people to have a goal in mind. Mm-hmm. How does having a goal in mind impact how one should go about building a network?
Well, it's such a great question, because part of it gets to why write another book on networking when there's lots of terrific books out there. And for me, a lot of frustration reading networking advice was, it didn't seem to give a roadmap to individuals. And I've been very goal focused in the sense of, all right, what am I doing? What's the task in front of me? Maybe what's the big ambition, but breaking it down. What's the task, the challenge, the problem in front of me? Because for me, networking is problem solving, and we problem solve and we get solutions with the help of other people. Technology, like us using this Google Hangout, may facilitate, but it's between people. So every time I'm thinking about, all right, let's take writing a book as an example. I want to write a book. Where do I start? Well, okay, who do I ask? I don't need to ask my entire network. I sit down and I segment and I think, all right, who are the right people for me to ask? Where do I start on this? And then once I got that answer, it was like, okay, who are the next group of people I need to talk to because I need to get a literary agent? All right, who's the next group of people I need to talk to when I want to talk about, getting an illustrator? And so it was really that kind of segmentation based on, all right, what's the challenge, problem, goal, ambition, whatever it is right in front of us, and who are the right people right here, right now to help me solve that?
Cool. So one of the things that was interesting in reading your book is when you talked about narrow focused versus a network versus an open uh,
Mhm.
network. And I'm going through that right now because, in my field, technology, I have a really tight network. But the issues with that and what you're talking about in the book is give me access to a certain group of people and a certain sort of types because of that. Um, how does one strike the balance between building a narrow focused network and a wide open network? And how will you know if you have too much of the other?
Well, I mean, you need both. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the reality is you need both, and you've hit the nail on the head. Like, I think sometimes probably the bigger danger is people have too narrow of a network. Like if you just had a very narrow network, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to have the same guests on my show all the time. So, but you need that narrow network. That's your expertise network. That's your mentors. That's the people who have got your back, the people who can give you feedback on one of your programs, or, like the team you can pull together because, you need to do something in the community. That's your narrow network, and you think about that. We all need to have those. But if you all of a sudden think, oops, I don't have that. I don't have those trusted advisors. I don't have those 3 people I can go to say, hey, can you come and help me, do this community service work? Or, gosh, I need someone to pick me up at the doctor. Who's it going to be? My family members aren't available. Like, you need that really tight network. But that's not where opportunities come from. And you could get into a little bit of an echo chamber if you keep your network too narrow. And that's why you need to make sure you've cultivated and you've maintained a broad, diverse network. That's the power of loose ties. That's where opportunities come from. So you and I are a great example of that. This is a loose tie because we have this connection through social media. Now, we've probably taken, because of this podcast, we've taken a big step closer, but it's still that loose tie. And that's where, gosh, I may say, hey, Dr. Will, I've got 3 other people in my network that you should interview. And all of a sudden you've got new ideas, new input, people you've never thought about before. So you need both of those, and everyone should look at their network and make sure they've got, I would say, enough of both, and find ways. I think the biggest challenge for people is finding ways to maintain those loose networks. And fortunately, that's where I think social media comes in, because we're able to keep an eye on people maybe we went to school with and we haven't seen since, the last reunion, or, we're able to start to forge new relationships because of common interests that we see based on posts and updates on social media.
So please talk about the why and why it's important to networking.
I think everyone needs to know what their why is. One of my favorite expressions is stop committing random acts of networking. If you don't know why you're doing something, if you don't know why an activity such as going to a networking event or a meetup is going to help you get ahead in your own personal goal or career, you're kind of just being aimless, and that lack of focus, I think, can hold you back. So, Simon Sinek's Why is an amazing course to take, and his book is fantastic. I've done it myself, and I suggest people figure out what your why is. And then every time someone asks you or suggests, a new networking group or an event or something, you can put it through your why and say, hey, how does this help me push me further in the direction I'm going? I will say, though, curiosity and discovery are great whys. Like, if you don't know what you want to do, just to say, listen, this sounds interesting. I'm curious to see what this group does. Those are good reasons to attend or to sign up or to join, participate. But time is precious. It's, as I like to jokingly say, it's the one thing Silicon Valley hasn't been able to hack more of at this point. So, be conscious of your time, and more importantly, when you're networking, um, be really conscious of the time you're taking of other people. Because if it doesn't, if you don't know what your why is and how this person has somehow got information or insights or something that can help you further along, you're not being considerate of their time, and that's a dangerous place to get into.
Okay, so I want to throw something out there to you. In the book, I love how you say you can't hack relationships and everything is about people, people, people. But you also talk about how, okay, we know in networking at some point it's a selfish thing in terms of, look, I'm trying to get something for me. But you also talk about how, in also doing that, give yourself to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And forming these relationships and building and as you, I guess, on your quest, and and you say, okay, this is my wife for doing this. I guess I'm trying to figure out from I guess a genuine, authentic perspective, how does one try to sort of get and give without coming off like that person that you may get a random LinkedIn message from, and they're like, hey, can you introduce me to such and such? Or where it seems like someone is always just trying to get something from you, as opposed to saying, in this relationship we're building, how we might partner up, and how I may learn from you and you may learn from me. We may be beneficial to each other.
Well, you've hit that tension and that struggle, because you don't want to be that one-sided transactional networker. Listen, that has a time and a place. I usually refer to it as sales, but and that's also understanding why someone else would want to give you something. But some of this give before you get is the basic human consideration and decency of understanding the value of someone else's time, of being thankful or grateful that someone gives you that time, or that someone is prepared to send you back that email with the insights you need. It is doing your research before you make the ask. So so many times people are like, hey, can you help me? They haven't looked around. Like, you and I, this is like a great example in my mind of that give before you get is, you've been following me, you've been retweeting my stuff, you bought my book, you read it, then you reached out and said, hey, would you consider doing this? As opposed to just jumping in saying, hey, do you want to do this? And I'm like, okay, like, who are you? And you've done the research and you've done the work. And that to me is like, okay, like, this is a person I want to get to know. This is a person whose success I'm now invested in. It's mutual. So, I mean, one of the big things I think people can do, because a lot of the time I think that the sort of the give before you get, people think, oh, gosh, what have I got to give? This person's, X or Y, and I need more. That human consideration of, like I said, doing the research beforehand. If you can find the answer about someone in a Google search, then do the Google search and ask them a better question. No point in someone emailing me and saying, what are you up to these days? Haven't seen you in a decade. Like, come on, a quick glance of LinkedIn or Twitter will show you what I'm up to. First page of a Google search will show you that. So do that, and then ask me the better question. I got a text the other day from someone who, gosh, probably haven't seen since 2006. Out of the blue, they're back in the U.S. They had a career question, had absolutely, and I'm in some ways, I'm like really flattered that I'd made such an impression on someone's life that it still mattered to them that they consult me about their career. But what the heck, had done absolutely no background on what I was up to. Absolutely none. And I just was like, you know what? Well, I am flattered and in many ways honored that you would still think my opinion was valuable. It's a little tiresome when a quick Google search or a look on LinkedIn would have said, oh my gosh, like, and just even writing that little bit of a note, if the person had said, wow, all the things you've done since I left the US, how's your book doing? Any chance you'd have some time? That would have made all the difference between me taking the call and me wishing them the best of luck.
Mm. Mm.
I know it's like shocking. We just have to be decent human beings. Funnily enough, I often ask people. I say to them, when you read Build Your Dream Network, and if it's had an impact, like tell me what was the advice that most meaningful to you. And one person one time said to me, "Gosh, Kelly, it was your advice to network like the person you'd like to network with." And this really struck me as humorous. I have a bit of a sarcastic, funny bone, but you know what? Maybe there's just a lot of the humanity and kindness and community and being the good neighbor that we've lost over the years. We've lost it because our faces have been on our phones. We've lost it because, who knows? You fill in the blank between civility and politics and all the rest of it. But yeah, how do you want people approaching you to ask for information or guidance or assistance? And are you asking people in the same way, in terms of that consideration?
I like this. I'm telling you, people, you need to get that book because it is amazing. And for me, I actually wrote my dissertation on teachers using Twitter for professional development. And part of that was the whole sort of networking piece of, when you're on Twitter, this is an opportunity for you to learn with other educators and ask, them questions. And from there, sort of build relationships that will allow you to grow professionally. So, reading your book, and then I love the quips you have. They're just, I'm like, okay, it's really nice. It's really nice. So people, go buy the book. Seriously, go buy the book. But you talk so much about learning the communities and building relationships and people. But depending on the industry, for women and people of color, gaining access to people to build those critical relationships is a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
To go about navigating those communities.
Yeah, I want to say, sometimes we're looking for quantity, and I'm like, you know what? Look for quality. And if you need to build a network one relationship at a time, then do it. I think within many communities now, we can find someone who will open the door. We have the ability to join. If the community isn't in your immediate backyard, thankfully there's online groups and communities, and between Twitter chats and Facebook groups and things. Thank God for I'm going to say Google Hangouts, Skype, and all the rest of it. That you can find community, share your ideas, and find someone who is going to be that champion or advocate. Relationship building takes time. So part of me is like, use the tools at hand. Again, the promise of the internet, and thank God for the internet, to find the people within your area of interest, that community, who are the generous networkers who will open doors. And just, I want to say, brick by brick, relationship by relationship, build that new community and say, what was the expression when you come to if you find a wall, build a door. Find don't sit there and say, oh, I'm not going to be able to get in. Find the people who will open the door and bring you in. I very much had that when I joined really got involved in the New York startup community because I had not been involved heavily before 2011. And thinking back, Chris Freylig at First Round, I got a meeting with him through one of my co-founders of the Startup Accelerator. And Chris said, hey, we're having an event tonight. You should come. And part of it was him extending that hand for me to be there. And the other piece of it was me saying yes. And so I think that's the other piece of it. Find people who are going to open the doors and then be prepared to say yes. And earlier in my career, that was when I was practicing law, and all the decision makers, I was practicing in Toronto at the time, all the decision makers in the area of law, no shock and surprise, a bunch of old white guys. And they all played golf. And my mentor said to me, do you play golf? And I looked him straight in the eye, old white guy, and I said, I guess I'm going to learn. And he's like, good answer. So the other piece of it, when you find people who are going to champion, you need to look yourself in the mirror and say, all right, am I also going to be there to be, the person that they're not just opening the door in, but they're, full-heartedly putting their arm around and dragging, don't let them drag you kicking and screaming reluctantly into the middle of the room and the center of the community. Be the person who's walking there beside them, because you're investing as much now in that community as they're putting the faith in you to bring you in.
Okay, so now, since you said that, now I want to throw this out to you. How does someone overcome the fear of taking that step? And what I mean by that is, as you said, hey, do you play golf? So for someone who upper level management, CEO or whatever, they're saying, hey, I want to bring you along for the ride. And you may say, I'm not ready for that ride. Like, I just wanted to take maybe one step up to be better. But now this person is saying, I'm bringing you with me. And I know this person has the connections to really bring me to that next level. I'm not ready. So how does someone sort of overcome that fear to go ahead and jump?
Well, so the two things that run through my mind are, one, sometimes people see more in us than we see in ourselves. And, you read the book. So Tina Roth Eisenberg, Swiss Miss on Twitter, you know that her community saw more in her than she saw in herself. All of her 4 businesses are a testament to that. She would not have started those things unless her community said, Tina, you can do this. So, listen to your community and let your community voice downplay that, little gremlin in the back of your head that's, telling you you're not ready. The other piece on this, I'd say, is you are your own best career investment, or your own best investment, period. Make the investment. So for me, that was going to the driving range and learning how to play golf. For me, that's, when getting in the New York startup community, it was like figuring out that community, networking the heck out of it till I figured out where I needed to spend my time. It was reading every blog, attending conferences, filling my head with new knowledge. Make it a priority, just because you say you want something, like, prove that you want it as well. My usual piece of advice to people are, 3 things. Build your expertise. Like, make that investment in yourself. Build that expertise. What do you want to be known for? Build that network. It's not who you know or what you know, it's who knows what you know. Your ideas, your career, the network is what gives that, lift under your wings to take your career forward. And then the third piece I always say to people is build your bank account. And that can be, that could be money in the bank, but that also could be, hey, who are the people in your network you can do an exchange with? Like, gosh, you're starting your own business. I've got a really large home office. Come and start your business out of my home office, because I know you don't have money to have an office space right now. Who's the community you've been generous with that, oh gosh, you got a new podcast? I'm doing a marketing course at the community college. Let me use your podcast as a case study so I can market it. So who are the people you can do those kind of exchange with to help each other, other ways where, you may have had to pay for things. So make sure you've done those 3 things so that, I would say, you're just not dreaming about what's next or hoping. Hope is not a strategy. Having people and a plan, that's a strategy.
Cool, cool. So how has social media platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter influenced how you network? And how can others leverage those platforms to further extend their network?
Gosh, it sure makes it easier to stay in touch with people than back in the day with pen pals and a written address book and a stamp. But I think of social media platforms like physical spaces, because it's not technology, it's not a platform, it's not an avatar, it's other human beings behind that. And how can we exchange and share ideas? So LinkedIn for me is like crawling back into my corporate, my suit, my briefcase, my corporate life. That's work, that's professional. My tone, what I share, how I present myself, it's still me, but it would be like I was when I was walking down the hallways of a big law firm or a Wall Street investment bank. Facebook for me is friends and family. So think about if you're sharing a career success, how differently you share it if you shared it with work colleagues or if you shared it with your family. Our tone, our descriptive words, our dialogue is different. And so that's the way I think of Facebook. And then Twitter, well, that's just a good old cocktail party, isn't it? Do you want to be the person who walks into the cocktail party or the bar screaming at the top of your lungs? Or do you want to be the person that someone says, hey, join our conversation? I might prefer the latter. And that's the way I think of Twitter.
Awesome. Awesome. I've had such a great time. This has been a wonderful conversation for me. I know my listeners and people who will be viewing this, they're going to get a lot of great gems from this conversation. But before we go, what is your call to action for those who still see transactional over relational?
Oh, I'm going to say, listen, the only skill set that we know is going to be, valuable in the careers of the future are some curiosity and critical thinking and the ability to solve problems. And we do that with the help of other people. So I think as our economy and our digital world moves forward, people skills need to be put at the forefront. If you've got a lot of educators in your network, they know this better than anybody else. I mean, kids in school these days, the jobs they're going to have when they graduate haven't been invented yet, but we're still all here. So, up the people skills and up the curiosity by being interested in other people.
Awesome. Awesome. People, this is going up on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe. I'm going to pop this on LinkedIn and SoundCloud as well for those who like to listen while you're working out or on a long commute. As always, EDU, peace. How are you doing? And that's it. Thank you again, Kelly, for being on the show. I'm so excited myself. I got to go back to work today, though.
You and me both.
Yeah. Thank you for being a guest on the show.
Thank you.
You're welcome.